Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Common Lisp Study Group. I'm your host, Ron Baden with Atlanta Functional Programming. Today, we're going to be starting a small project that uh, was on my mind for quite a bit, involving the graph databases and especially the cl-neo4j graph database and its connection with Common Lisp, along with using some basics of natural language processing, sort of to get us up to speed on doing some kind of real projects with Common Lisp and kind of see where we can like push the limits of our design and how might we build some of these kinds of systems that leverages the Common Lisp libraries in the ecosystem, especially nowadays that we're supposed to kind of most users now are expecting products and projects as well as applications written in a more networking oriented fashion and being able to like build containers on top of these things. So I was hoping to provide some sort of real world project to allow us to put together some of these ideas. And this is kind of something that has been on my mind for some time that I want to at least try out myself. So I hope those who are joining in would be encouraged to look at this and provide some feedback. And if you have any project ideas, suggestions, as well as requests, feel free to, post it in the comments. And if you like what you're seeing, please like the video as well. So that way, other folks can get this on their recommendations list through YouTube. Before I begin, I wanted to announce a couple of things again. Next week, first, Kamala Study Group will be off for the Christmas holiday as well as New Year's. So, although we currently have it scheduled because the way Meetup works to create weekly meetings, we have it scheduled for I believe it's the 23rd of December as well as the 30th of December. Um, I'm canceling those for the Christmas holidays so that way you can enjoy your holidays with your families, and we'll get back to doing pretty interesting work in the coming new year. The second announcement is, as usual, Common Lisp is looking for speakers, and those of you who are available to provide a talk in this study group. And Atlanta Functional Programming Meetup is also looking for speakers for folks who are interested in providing functional programming topics. Feel free to DM me on Slack as well as Discord. I tend to squat on the Lisp Discord server periodically from time to time. And I will try and schedule your talk as soon as possible. As I mentioned earlier, today's discussion is going to be on graph databases, particularly the Neo4j graph database. So I thought I would begin by first providing at least a little bit of a uh, background as well as my own personal experiences with graph databases to provide some at least insights to why I think it's a very important technology to look at, especially nowadays, given some of the stuff that we are doing with large language models as well as other deep learning related constructs where the graph database provides us at least kind of storage format to connect these heterogeneous pieces of information and data in a nice, easy, and friendly way to query them. Because it's not just about storage; it's about retrieval. That you must understand when you're dealing with persistent data. Uh, my own personal experience, specifically with Neo4j, comes from experience with actually another graph database, and that is Allegrograph, the great and awesome still Common Lisp based graph database that is provided by Franz. And you know, although um, I would try and see if I can get up a Lego Graph community and show you guys that as well. I thought I would start with Neo4j because that's more of a recent obsession of mine, particularly with uh, understanding that cl-neo4j is being somewhat available and looks like it's somewhat supported in actively developed. Obviously, to start things out, we are going to require a graph database. I am running, although you are not seeing it in the video, a a live feed to a graph database I'm running in the background as a Docker container. Um, and I have and this is Neo4j's community bullseye version running in a Docker container that I thought we would start with. To provide some background with why Neo4j and what it is, I think it's important to kind of understand what graph databases are. Um, and I'm just going to write this in the comments, and then we can just, really start diving in with cl-neo4j separately. But basically, in a graph database, most graph databases have um, some obviously representation of graphs as a core persistent data structure that will be stored inside of the database. In particular, Neo4j does something different because in the history of graph databases, uh, especially in recent years, a lot of them came from the RDF community. RDF standing for Resource Description Framework, and it was a standard that came out of the W3C for purposes of providing metadata to websites for enabling machine driven agents to go in and browse through the web and provide, say, inferential recommendations for other folks. This is the so-called semantic web effort that started around early 2006, um, when I think that's when the RDF recommendations became, I believe, uh, a a W3C recommendation, and at the same time, uh, it kind of progressed and became somewhat of a big effort with various the triple stores, what they call triple stores, which is basically an encoding of the RDF standard being provided um, to be uh, a way of storing that information and retrieving that information. RDF particularly provided some other stuff, but because there were some severe limitations with how it was provided, because originally it was a triple store format where you had the notion of a subject predicate object, and as these graphs became bigger and bigger, it wasn't just that you could have the subject predicate object kind of facts um, inside of your graph databases. And I'm sorry if I'm using facts interchangeably here, just because there is some influence from Prolog that went into these kinds of representations, but it became apparent that that alone wasn't a good way of encoding it. So you might hear people start saying triples and then quadruples, which is adding the graph in which the triple is coming from. And then now I'm forgetting they added a couple of other things for indexing that was used to actually create these triple stores. So another effort came from that, and this is the effort that Neo4j comes from, which is the property graph representation. There are various property graph representations out there. Neo4j is probably the most popular just because of the the I think just the time at which it came out. It was probably the only one out there, and then ended up getting adopted by various cloud vendors. Um, and it although its language for querying Cypher wasn't particularly adopted, there are connectors for some of the cloud databases out there, whether it be Cosmos or believe Amazon's is called Neptune, that allows you to query these graphs using Cypher. There is a secondary property graph API for querying property graphs called Gremlin that's out there, but for the purposes of today's discussion, I'm going to limit my discussion to just using the Cipher query language. Now, like I said, I am running a Neo4j um, connection in the background, and I'm going to be leveraging the Neo4j interface in the library. But in order for me to do that, I need to obviously connect to Neo4j and then, hopefully get some some data connected into it and stuff. So first, we need to obviously load up Neo4j. Neo4j is available through Quick Lisp, and when you get started, um, the nice thing that you would want to do is probably run um, the tests that's provided in the API, just so that they could make sure that uh, everything is properly connected before we get started on our project. And let me see, it may require me to also load up cl-neo4j.tests. Let me see. No, 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 no. It has to be this way. No, 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 no. Okay. And let's go ahead and run 4j.tests, run all tests, just to make sure. And it looks like all of them passed. Deleting the nodes. Okay, excellent. All right. So, um, this library has been around for a while, and the documentation, honestly, on it was somewhat sparse. But I have been trying to figure out how this library works for the past few days. Hopefully, some of the stuff that um, I found will be helpful here, and how to actually connect to this and run it. But this seems to be some of the more complete libraries out there to actually use Neo4j on Common Lisp for graph databases. And since Neo4j is around more actively than one of the other graph databases I'm looking at for Common Lisp, particularly, there was a pure Common Lisp wrapper written called Vivian Graph that seems to have stopped development recently. I thought it would be useful to start through this first. Um, Let me see. Let's get started with the first thing, which is let's set up, let's do a connection into the database first. So, okay. So we need to set a couple things up first, which is, um, and I may want to do this. So a couple of things that I'm gonna first get started on is setting up the Neo4j host, and this is going to be just local host. We need to set up, and obviously since I'm doing this through the REPL, this is going to be slightly different when we actually write a real project. But I want to start things off first with just playing around with the API, and then we can get closing it. By the way, for newcomers coming in, this is usually an open discussion. So if there's any particular questions that you want to talk about, feel free to post it either in the chat or just raise your hand if you're in the Jitsi call, and I will answer those questions as I go along. I think this one requires me to do 76 to 87. So there's two connections that are using that Neo4j is usually running on. Obviously, you don't want to really add this in the default port is 7687, but if you're trying to set this up for a production environment, you'd want to probably set this up using environment variables that you could then pull in from the configuration. And especially if you're running this in a container, that would be very, very useful, because then you could get the container version that's uh, the port that's being assigned to the running container, so you can correctly connect to it. And we'll see how that work when we start building it. So the next thing that we want to do is set up a Neo4j user and authentication. Now, this is one thing I'm not too thrilled about doing, but I will um, set this up in a different shell, and then I will read in the file. Um, Let me see if I can do this. Um, So what I'm talking about is in order to really connect to the Neo4j 4J database right now in this library specifically, it expects you to pass in the username and password that you need to actually connect to it. Obviously, you don't really want to do that, especially since that would be a security hole if someone can grab the username and password in clear text from your users. There are obviously ways to work around this. One of which is, reading that information from a file, which is what I'm going to currently do, and be done with it. So this way. Let's see. So what I need to first do is put in this into a file, which is let's go ahead and put this into some creeds file, and we'll just say J and rocks. Okay. All right. So now let's go back to this, and let's just do let's open up the file. And you know what? Why am I doing it this way? Let's go ahead and set up our scratch buffer. Thank you. And let's close that off. Okay, so we need to first put this in, set up server information, and then set up password information. I'm just putting these scratch notes in the scratch buffer, so that's this way I can after this call we can actually go through and um, put this in a separate file, and I can load it into like GitHub. Then you can obviously change the way that we're connecting into um, the database with whatever your own credentials files that you want to create. Uh, and sorry, not password information, port information. Just go ahead and do this way. Host and port. Okay. Now set up authentication. And for this, we're just going to open up a file. And the file name is going to be something like credentials.txt. And this way, we're reading. So this is an input. So let's go ahead and then just set up Neo4j, Neo4j. Looks like it's not a. It looks like the version that's in the users is not actually exported anymore. So now how do we actually go in and create the thing? Let me see something. Like I said, since this database is API is somewhat documentation is somewhat sparse, I'm like kind of going through and looking at stuff as I go along and trying to figure stuff out. Let me see something here. Maybe I have to provide something through the wrapper API. This is all relationships, standard node, create node, add index. Nope, nope, nope. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. And let's see what it says. Create an index, create node, create relationship, get nodes, lookup index. How do we connect to the database? This is in utilities. Let's see. Define get node property. This is all post relationships, status, handlers, as well as okay. So obviously we're going to have to check something here to see if I need to do a, I don't like doing this. cl-neo4j host and ports is, okay. We're going to have to go and look at what is in Quick Lisp, because the version that's available, the documentation that's available through GitHub is giving me a very different, once again, it's giving me a very different set of exported symbols. So let's see here, Lisp, Quick Lisp, Quick Lisp, installed systems, Quick Lisp, software, there we go, cl-neo4j, and let's go to source. And yes, it looks like there was some refactoring done in the API that's not available in Quick Lisp, it looks like. It's fine. Let's see what Quick Lisp provides, so this way we don't actually do something incorrect. So it's providing hosting. Okay, so let's do, how is it doing the REST API calls? Okay, so this one, you're just doing deletes, but it doesn't tell me how you're connecting into them. So where is this guy defined? Let's see. Local header, Lisp, these are things. Let's do. This is found in what file? So for some reason, it's not recognizing the fact that I'm trying to look for a particular definition. Looking at let's see, no, space sly ask. Let's see. Oh, quit. I don't need another. For some reason, it started another buffer. Sorry, another REPL. Yeah, it's not recognizing this as being a .lisp. Okay, let's see something else then. What does the wrapper say? Make standard node, make standard node create, node delete, node property, relationships. Okay, so your map card. Oops, sorry. That's not what I wanted to do. There is nothing in here. Really? That is hilarious. So how was one supposed to connect to this if we didn't have? Oh, I see. So the way this was connected, he was writing a pure RESTful API wrapper originally, but now he's trying to switch it up a little bit. Okay. All right. All right. So let me see. Right. I misunderstood how this was working originally. Okay. So this API, this library is a pure API wrapper to the RESTful API that's available in when you actually run cl-neo4j. And in order for me to show that, I have to kind of open up a shell. So like if you do a simple curl on localhost 7074, you can see that this is your connection to the actual database that you can you're getting information about. If you're actually trying to use, say, Bolt is their protocol to actually do binary TCP/IP transmissions. You could certainly do so, but you have to run 7687 to actually connect to it, which is what I was using. But for our case, we're going to actually be using the transaction API, which is this guy, this URL. Let me first do that. And let me try something here. So I don't know if this is going to work. So forgive me, but this should work based on my understanding on how this is all working. The first things to do is we need to first generate the format query that we're going to actually do, and then we can move towards actually what's it creating nodes and things like this. For sake of example or simplicity, I'm going to go ahead and load some data into this using the movie graph guide that they provided in um, their 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 the tutorials that they provided in Neo4j. And in order for me to do this a little bit better, what I'll do is I'm going to show you my entire screen to give you guys a better picture of what's going on. Actually, instead of doing that, let's see if I can get this all loaded, and then I will actually post this up. Let's see this. And, okay, so create. Okay. Actually, let's see if I can create a new database. That's probably better. Let's see. Play start. Let's do this. Okay. So let's do this. Let's start with yeah, I'll do this way. cl-neo4j wrapper node create and we're going to create some properties to add into this graph, and then let's see what happens. So to create a property in here, we are going to have to actually leverage some of the information that we're going to add a node, and then we're going to add some properties on top of it. Ideally, what it should find is it should use the same notation as you would normally get when you run this inside Cipher. Okay, so let me show you an example of this. Let's take this guy. This is an example of the Cipher notation. Okay, so we open up a paren. I'm assuming that we need to do, because there's no documentation on this, I have to kind of run it by year. So let me pull up the wrapper API. Go to node create. Okay, so creates a new constructor is a constructor for node by default. So let me actually do this documentation. So for folks who are looking at this, normally you'd want to use oh shoot, sorry. You'd want to use your REPL buffer to actually go and search through the documentation inside Emacs, especially if you have Doom, sorry, not Doom, Sylvester installed. There's a way of actually leveraging the notation in real time. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, my Emacs buffer is giving me some trouble. So I have to do it the old-fashioned way. Oops. Okay, so, all right. And let me see this. Okay, and first, let's see. No, let's see, buffers. B, there we go. That's what I wanted. All right. And you could just do something like this, and we'll go and grab the documentation string from the actual code itself. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm only going to provide the default constructor stuff that they provided. And the default constructor stuff is this make standard node, which will allow you to provide the ID, and then you can grab the properties associated with it. So let's see if this would actually node create. Okay, let's see if this will actually do what we're expecting it to do. All right. Constructor by node, it's using the default constructor, which is make standard node. I need to split this up so I can actually see make standard node, because I need to know what the ID is. Okay, let's try this. cl-neo4j wrapper node create. Okay, I'm going to clear this up. And let's do this. And let's grab the ID and extract ID from link. So what is it actually asking for? Well, let's see if I could just do this normally, shall we? So usually IDs inside of Neo4j is some basic text that it can then convert into its own kind of like URI based naming scheme that can then get inserted. I'm wondering if, based on this code, if what it's actually expecting us to do is create a named an associative list. So let's see here. So I'll say that self. Let's call this the movie, and let's call this a movie because I have a movie database that I'm creating. And I'm making some fake movies in here right now just so I can check it out. Then with Neo4j, the data is your metadata regarding this. So you can add data, and then you do say what the title of the movie is and provide, information regarding it. Like let's say the movie, and then you could provide a direct when it was released. All right, let's say that it was 2001, and we can put other information on this. All right, now what other properties do you want on this? You see, you don't need to provide properties on this because according to this, you could have gotten the properties as a keyword property. So this is already kind of like, okay, it's probably missing something here. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Odd number of keyword arguments. Okay, so that means I have to provide all the other information. Oh, wait, constructor is that. Let's do that and see what happens. There we go. We hit our first error that's meaningful. No status line, probably network error. That means it is not actually calling out to the connection that it's receiving. And that's probably because we are still checking it to being, what's the port? Oops, sorry, not that. Should not have made that into a function call. That. Okay, So we are using the wrong. Let's go and do this. And where is it? It is our scratch buffer. Okay. Let's go ahead and change this to 7474. Oops. Okay, so this is now 7474. Let's try that again. Let's see what happens. Unknown status 401, return to for node. Okay, 401. So that means there was an error when we created the actual node inside of the post request. So one thing to note about a lot of these wrapper libraries for REST is you're going to have to be somewhat familiar with the HTTP status API. So in this case, 401 means that we're not authorized, which makes sense because we haven't actually logged in. So the first thing we're going to have to do is create. This is going to be our first extension of this is some sort of connection method that allows us to at least provide the authorization information without actually using clear text inside of the HTTP request. So let's see, what is cl-neo4j REST API authorization authentication? That's probably what I need to first do. Okay, so in order for us to do this, we need to first create a raw HTTP request to the request server to connect to it. Now, I'm not saying that it has to be this way, but it's better for the examples, and then obviously I can show you what we could do in terms of speeding up for your own development needs. I won't necessarily add this inside of the API for this, but it is something that we can certainly think about adding to the API. Um, 1 second. Okay, so let's see how we can do this. And then let me first close this window up so we can actually have this. And let's create a Drachma request to actually go and create this. Now, Drachma is actually a library that allows you to essentially think of it like curl for Common Lisp. So you'll construct your HTTP request for you. So the way you would do that is obviously first we need to generate the HTTP request. And for this, I have to actually create, yeah, this is what I need to do. Okay, so let's do this. And let's see what it is. For not this one, let's go to the utilities because they are using, there we go. So we can use the format cl-neo4j query a little bit. Let's see here. Actually, you know what? Instead of doing that, let's see their REST API call. So they created this. Let's do the max. Make the cl-neo4j request. Get the URI. Then I see somebody else joined. Code JSON for to make this. Okay, so this cl-neo4j request is a function that they've defined inside inside the API, but they didn't actually provide what that is. So hold on. Let's see if this is even available for us. Okay, let's see if I can find it. Request.things. There we go. Kind of figured they would have this. Let's see what this function does. So this function is not even written in here. Where did he define it? Let's go back to this and see if that's in there. Nope. Is it in wrapper? I don't think so. If it's in conditions, let's see. Nope. Nope. It has to be in that other one, which is in request. You see, constructor is make cl-neo4j request. Oh, I see now. They specified it in here when they're constructing the structure. So with cl-neo4j request, they're saying instead of generating make cl-neo4j request has a public API. The structure name is going constructor is going to be percentage that. Okay. Let's see. Can I leverage this guy? Probably not, because it doesn't have the authorization stuff. handle request as multiple value bind, but it doesn't tell me that you're using drachma here. Okay, hold on one second. Let's go and look at how drachma is being used here. Drachma. Get started. URL encode string. Line 49. Let's see here. Okay, they're encoding the string, and they're using drachma, but they're not actually. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, he's this is one thing I don't encourage, but it makes sense given probably the number of places where he's leveraging. The reason why it's a little difficult for me to kind of navigate through his code to figure out which function it's from is because he's using the packages. So the function calls, if they're part of the exported API, they aren't part of you don't need to provide it. You don't need to prefix the call to the function or the construction of the object with where the actual library where the symbol actually came from. So what package did it come from, which makes code navigation just a little bit more challenging, given the fact that I'll be honest, I don't have all the API calls for Drachma, JSON RPC, and JSON in my head. So knowing which one is which for which libraries, it requires me to kind of wrap my head around it. So let me see if I could just create the equivalent in my Scratch buffer from just the call. Okay, URI, let's see, we're doing HTTP. We need to first log in, so let's do 7074 user cl-neo4j, and then we need to provide authentication as part of the header information. So let's see here. We need to create, I'm going to have to probably use, say, Postman to actually go and construct the actual authentication tool, because there's a way in Postman to provide an there's a header that you can provide inside of the HTTP format that allows you to specify in the authorization header a basic value that's a hash of the username password information that you need to pass over. I need to get that encoded correctly in order for me to actually do this. So give me just bear with me just for a few seconds, because it's requiring me to retrieve a kind of a separate RESTful client to actually do the encoding. See if I can do this. Python. I'm wondering if Python has, or even Common Lisp has it, but you know, let's see if there's a library. So in the Python library, they actually only provide the session object that allows you to provide the API, but if you can use Postman, that would be ideal. Let's see if I can. Okay. Let's see if I can get this going here. All right. Downloads. Okay. Let's see if I can get this in. What the hell? Okay, so let's do this. HTTP log host /user/neo4j, and then go to basic authentication, and let's see what happens here. Neo4j. Right. This. Interesting. It won't let me. The newer version. Let's see what happens. Headers. Access control. I want to see the request. Cookies, headers, authentication. So inside this, there has to be a way for me to grab the encoding in the. Thanks for joining, Alex, and apologize it's taking a little longer than expected, but you know. So got it. So this is one way of doing this. So going to Python. Oh wait, we even have a common Lisp library for base 64 encoding. Yes, we do. Nice. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to, as part of the API, provide base64 encoding all of the actual information for Common Lisp to be able to actually, well, not Common Lisp, the HTTP header to be able to encode the authentication for, well, to be able to pass the authentication information in a semi-safe format. Well, unfortunately, it'll still have the hash of the actual payload here. Obviously, there's better ways of doing this because, with things like GWT tokens and things like this, we can actually go and create a database with this information, and then you would have to authenticate there and get a session key, a token that can then be passed to multiple APIs. But because we are doing, this on the fly for ourselves, it would be useful to actually first get this this all kind of working before we start thinking about, the um, before we start actually thinking about more architectural kind of things like deployment architectural kind of issues. That's one thing that I'm trying to prevent from having in this conversation, just merely because, again, as we're building this up, this is going to require, some additional changes. But we'll get there. Let me try something here. Oh wait, do this, that. Okay, let me do this. Import. So here we go. Help. So what I'm doing behind the scenes here is actually, so I don't have to show you my username and password for this thing to be completely safe for basic knowledge. Here we go. Copy. Let's see if this will work. Is I'm encoding my stuff, the way it kind of like expects us to, in our what's it? I'm kind of encoding the stuff the way that the API is expecting us to, but in a way that which is a base64 encoded string, but without having to provide you guys a clear text password. So this way you could see kind of how stuff is kind of constructed. So when we do this, let's see what happens. Don't know how to handle parameters because this is not a put or post request. Okay, got it. So I have to go and do that. Let's see here. Okay, missing authorization, post, unauthorized, incorrect examples. Let's see. Okay, so maybe I could do that too as well. Echo, cl-neo4j. Now, let's see, cl-neo4j lightweight testing, pragma. This is this. Okay. So what you saw earlier is, oh, this is not a parameter. This is actually a header information. I'm using the wrong thing here. I think it's, let's see, drachma, headers. All right. Let's see here, headers. Additional headers. Maybe I have to specify it in this way. Okay, let's see. All right. Let's see what this generates. Okay, so you can see here that it's generating our plexi string. 401 means that we're unauthorized because it attempted to make the HTTP request, and then it says it's unauthorized. But in order for me to do basic authentication, I may need to do a post. So let's see if I could do this. Post method post. Unauthorized still. Interesting. Oh, okay, I see. So I have to actually provide this to say that it's requiring the content type. Okay, got it. So this is still a get, but it's requiring us to actually do content type application just JSON, and let's say that we're accepting also, although we could use other stuff for now, we're accepting this. Okay, let's see if this actually changes it. Oops. Hold on. Not authentication. I'm being dumb. Authorization. There we go. Now we're getting something somewhere. Bad request. What is the request? Why is it bad? Um, mm, see, what is it doing that's different here? Date, access control, allow origin, bad request. Let's do this. Do I need this now? Sorry, I keep trying to implement this in my Scratch buffer. Save my Scratch buffer. Okay, so it's saying that it's dealing with access control, allow origin star. Content is it. URI is connection close. And it got a 400 status error, which is that it can't process invalid syntax. So, so in Drachma, what I may have to do there we go. See, instead of doing this, I have to do, it's going to, well, no, I don't want it to do it. Basic authorization is a terrible idea. So Drachma has basic authorization for you to use to try it out. And this is a dummy server, so I could just simply show you, the password, but really we want to follow some, basic rules of testing, even on live streams, which is why I'm trying to make sure that I follow kind of best practices as much as possible. It seems that this is constructing a very different thing. Let's see here. Okay, let's run this and image. Let's do a quick load Drachma here. Let's do for folks just joining in. I'm just trying to get this set up. We're having some technical difficulties with the cl-neo4j library. Like I mentioned before, this library's documentation is sparse, so I'm trying to work through what I would consider to be a basic example of this, in hopes that we could leverage this library to do some, basic NLP using some books that are available for you at your disposal for testing on Project Gutenberg. There's a lot of free ebooks down there for you to not only read for your pleasure, but there are different formats and things that you could leverage to certainly try and index and learn new ways of, running creating search engines and, doing deep learning and LLMs that, currently is the kind of the hot way of doing things nowadays. Um, while we're kind of getting this kind of set up and I'm just doing some testing here, feel free to ask questions and I will try and get them answered as soon as possible. Um, let's try something very quickly here because that is taking a little long. cl-neo4j. Let's do load that, and then HTTP request. Did I lose my? No, it's here. Let's do this. This. All right. Let us go back to this API here. All right. So this here is basically telling me that authorization basic, this is a 400. Even though not specifying what is actually bad about the request. Okay, so with Drachma, let me see something here. Bad. There we go. So we can actually set this guy up by doing the following to see what's going on actually. Let's do this. Okay, so we're grabbing the Drachma request, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, oh shoot, sorry. I have to do this the old-fashioned way. Okay, and do this. Okay, oh yeah, so we need to also make sure we do want stream. We're going to set that to true so we can grab the actual, oops. So this is wrong. 1 second. There we go. That's what we want. All right. So we now have the stream. What we're going to do is we're going to see what the actual stream is providing us in terms of the request as well as the response. And for us to do that is we need to use Drachma internally uses something called FlexiStream. And FlexiStream is a nice way of doing streams formats. Obviously, it has some additional things that's beyond that in this current Streams API that's available to you inside Common Lisp. It actually handles UTF-8 properly, even though UTF-8 is implemented in most Common Lisps as a default. This also provides some additional things. I will probably at some point create a separate video on it, but for now, just know that this is available to you. There's some really nice APIs that are around it. This is a JSON file too, so we're going to use JSON.parse to actually go and grab the plist. Give me a second here. I'm going to probably grab this guy, yank this up, paste it here, and let's do this. Let me first load JSON because this is a nice way of grabbing it. JSON.parse stream, and then we're going to say just give me the property list of this guy. All right, and let's see what happens. Okay, errors. Neo.client.request.format invalid authentication header. Okay, so let us look at the actual authentication header that we're generating. So is there a way to grab this? Well, one way certainly is looking at let me see if I could do this. May not be. Yeah. I know. That's fine. So why is this an invalid? So most of the time when we're dealing with RESTful APIs, it's going to end up being the case that it should be simple. But has anybody who's dealt with HTTP APIs? There's nothing simple about writing HTTP APIs. The format is quite complex by design because there's a lot of functionality in there that you need when you're creating a full text API like that. So this is telling me that I am not creating the headers correctly, which is fine, but I should be able to construct the header in, oh, I see. I'm trying to actually create the header myself. Let me see if there's a keyword here for authorization. Don't want to do basic authorization. I want to be able to provide the authorization format for myself. Is there any way for us to do that inside of Drachma? Partial transfers. So okay, let me do this one thing. I'm setting it up so that we can actually see what happens when Drachma makes requests. And let's see this. Okay. Ah, there it is. The problem is this guy right here. In additional headers, it is actually encoding it incorrectly. It's probably expecting a list, a P list, sorry, or an A list. Yeah, it is looking for an A list, unlike in parameters, declares or that. Okay, so let's do this. That. Sorry. Oops. Sorry. Once again. We could use this, but I have to do that. Additional. Oh, I spelled additional wrong. There. Authorization is not of type list. If it's not of type list, then why is it? Let's go ahead and put this in list projects. Hold on, because I keep on trying to save it. cl-neo4j.lisp. There we go. Okay, so for whatever reason, it is actually not doing what I expect it to do. It is taking this and treating this as a list, but it should not actually. Decoders cannot only be strings, but also designated for unitary functions, in which case the function is called each time the header is written. A value a list of additional headers. Oh, it has to be association. Okay, let me see if I can do. If it's an associative list, let me see if I have to do this. Authorization. Oh, sorry. I have to put this there. Okay. There we go. It's still creating authorization as a bad request. Okay. And the reason is this guy. It's not liking that I'm passing in a string here. It's treating it as a list of strings. So let me see if I could do that. Nope, it is still treating that as a list of strings. It should be a single string. Why it's not doing a single string, I am not entirely sure why. Keep alive. Drachma still wants to return it as a list string. So the reason why I'm not using basic authorization is basic authorization will require me to provide a username and password, and I'd rather not go down that route of giving you a full clear text password, right? So, but for whatever reason, as you can see here, additional headers isn't liking the fact that this, I know why it's capitalized. Authorization is capitalized because it took the keyword argument and converted it into its symbol representations. So we can leave this the same. But as you can see here, let me go ahead and clear the REPL and do this again. Authorization is taking the string that we have and converting it into a list of strings. Why that's doing that is actually surprising. Let me do one thing. Let me try this. Okay, and add that and see what happens. Would it give me the coder of this? And just expect that. Nope. It is still constructing it like a string. Why? That just doesn't make any sense. Um, is there any other way of providing custom headers in Drachma? Let's see. In Common Lisp. So I'm going to go see if someone else had this kind of similar idea that I was having. Um, so according to the Drachma request, uh, content added to the query part of the OL. Right, we don't want to do that. Content part, cookie jar, basic authorization. Okay, I'm writing this as a function just to see what happens if it's just to see if this actually does what we expect it to do. Okay. It converted it as a it's converting it as a string. Why is it converting it as a string? This is it says that according to the Drachman documentation, it said additional headers is a name value A list, associative list. Um, for folks who don't know what an associative list is the car of the associative list is kind of like the key and then the cdr or the rest of the list is a value. So it's basically a list of name value pairs in the order in which it's going to be name and then value. Um, but it goes on to say that unlike in parameters, decoders can not only be strings, but also designators for unitary functions, in which case the function is called each time the header is written. But this is not what I am expecting it to do. So maybe it's because I commented it. We could certainly see if that's it. That sometimes happens to be the case. Let's see here. So there's a joke. There's a joker on our Jitsi channel that had just made the comment that there's a coulda that implies shoulda woulda. We got a comedian today on the study group. Uh, uh, that's how we are here at the Common Lisp Study Group, folks. We crack jokes whenever we see something, you know, that looks unexpected. We're here all week. We're here all week. This is going to cause problems because it's not a, but we will see. You see, this is kind of what I expected. Okay. This is a little bit disappointing. I was kind of hoping to have a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more, flexibility here. But it looks like Drachma is giving me something that I'm not expecting it to. You see, we were using in the past CL REST has and some other RESTful clients. Drachma should have should actually give you the ability to go and change some of this, but I'm currently not getting what I expected to. You have to describe it. Ooh, maybe I have to do a cons. Let's see if that actually works. Let's do this. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if I get rid of one list of parentheses. Authorization is not of type list. Okay, so let's make authorization of type list then. Okay. It's not of type list. Okay. Fell through the E case. Okay. I know this is the correct way of doing things, folks. It's just that I'm experimenting to see what in this associative list that's causing the problem. Wondering if I could do a cons of this. Right, because it's not inside of a back quote. Okay. Let's see if I can do. Let's do a dotted pair. into a file.
Really, really soft.
Okay, somebody has to put themselves on mute. Judd.
I think I bought mute.
I like them.
Hold on.
What?
Right. The only way to test
All right,
this
hold
way.
on.
So it looks like I gotten some expected thing here, but it says 404 not found now, which is interesting because by making it into a dotted pair, I got what I expected it to do, which is so let's see if I can do some further investigation on this, because it says that the request is not found. The URL is not found. Let's see here. My did not crash, did it? No, it did not. So this should work. Let's see what happens. End of file. We've got a not found here. So this. So far what we've seen is if I do this, I get a bad request from the it's a malformed request that's causing the issue. But it's not telling me why here anymore. If you noticed, we're not actually getting the Y anymore. We got the Y before. Let's see here, which is let's do this. Let's go ahead and make this into a proper dotted pair. Make this into a con star. Sorry, a let star. Authorization info. So let's call this auth info, which is the variable that we just constructed, and let auth info be this, which we'll say is a cons. And for folks who's never seen a cons, it just creates a dotted pair like I was doing earlier. Just making the code a little cleaner. All right, let's do that. Okay. Auth info is not of type list. What do you mean it's not of type list? Oh, right, because the fact that now I have this, I could just do this, and common Lisp auth info is undefined, even though I have it defined here. There we go. So now we're getting what the correct request format that we're expecting, but we are not actually getting the full URL. Actually, we are getting it. Is it user or users? Maybe it's because I'm using the wrong. No, it's user. It says that it is user. Let's see if I could do. Okay. It's still a 404 not found. So why is it giving me a 404 not found? So the one thing that we need to try and do is we need to, okay, we're going to try checking this out by running curl again from our shell to make sure that everything works out the way we expect it to, all right? So first, we need to go to our previous thing, not here, do this, go to that. We're going to go ahead and add authorization equals, and then let's grab this here. That, you serious? Grab this here. Yoink, go here, paste. And we're going to just go to do HTTP localhost 7074 user cl-neo4j and see what happens. Oh, I should have actually provided this. V. There we go. Connected, user cl-neo4j, user agent, accept basic authentication, authorization. And okay, so it is a valid URL for the API, but it is complaining about the request for the users database. So some of the stuff seems to be a little outdated from what we saw before. So let's do this quick thing. See what's available to us. Curl HTTP localhost 7074. See what happens. Okay, so let's try this. Instead of DB, users, let's do DB. And let's call this cl-neo4j as our database, and let's go to the TX API and see what happens. Method not allowed. Okay, so this means that we can actually go in and at least grab, as you can see here, we can't actually do a get. We need to actually only do a post or an options. I don't want to start a transaction right now, not unless we get into Common Lisp. But it looks like we are able to at least be able to grab the what's it? Our authentication is working. It looks like. Let's just do one more test, which is just get the options that we have available. Passing the method, if I remember correctly, is Got it. So we do this, options, and see what happens. Okay, so you can see that we're able to actually go in and create something. So let's go and see if we can use this information to connect into our database and see if we can come up with something equivalent to connecting to it to create some basic what's the word I'm thinking of? Some basic nodes inside of our graph. So in order for us to do this, is you saw that we were trying to use cl-neo4j wrapper node create, which seems to be not the thing that we need to use. It looks like from there. I'll go to the previous one. I have it open already. They have something called with Neo4j database earlier that we saw. This is okay. So that is actually not available to us in the wrapper. That's kind of unfortunate. Okay. Let me see this. Okay, these are all the conditions that he defined. This is just how to generate that. Let's see here. Request. There we go. In requests, we have with Neo4j database for a macro, but it is not actually provided to us because they're using this information to make the requests themselves. Okay, got it. All right. I mean, let's use the wrapper API because this will at least give us what we want. Okay. So here, if we actually look at what it's doing, is we're actually going to go in and correct some of this stuff. But in order for us to do so, we need to be connected to the database. And more importantly, we need to be able to actually provide our authorization information to the actual function call, which, as you can see here, there isn't a clear way of doing so. This might mean that I have to use the latest code because the query API is still incomplete in Quick Lisp. That's okay. It was rather unfortunate that we had to get to this point, but I wanted to at least see if it was possible to actually try and leverage the API as it stands inside of Quick Lisp before diving into more of a development library. But that's okay. Let's do that. With the time, I know we're going a little over for folks, so again, as if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop in. We're just kind of playing our way through this, and hopefully we can get to some sort of consensus before I close it out for the day. Let's see, what would be the best way of doing this? Okay, I see. Okay. Okay, and now here, let's go to, we're gonna have to go to local projects. No, not the CFFI tutorial. Okay, here we're going to go ahead and clone the parent level API. I may need to restart my my REPL in order for me to do this, because since we've already loaded the quick list version of this, obviously that's going to be a little obviously it's not going to actually recognize the fact that this was created. So let's go ahead and do that. This, what is the clone? Let's do that. And you could just use whatever cloning method you use. I tend to use, just a standard Git at GitHub. Okay, so we now have this available, as you can see here, cl-neo4j. So let's go ahead and do that and do this. Go into our REPL, restart. There we go. Okay, so let's do that here, and let's do the clear of the REPL. Okay, so now let's do quick list cl-neo4j. It's probably going to reinstall it. Okay, now let us do this. We don't need this. We don't need this. We don't need this. We don't need this. Okay, we're back to where we were earlier. Let's go ahead and grab from our okay. Let's go and look at what's in the package first. So create index. We have our variables of host, username, and password. We need to go into the wrapper API to see what this requires us to do. And let's check a couple things out first. Neo4j host. What is it set to? Okay, Neo4j password is set to some BS. I'm not going to actually use username and password here internally. I mean, we could certainly do so, just to make things easier for us. But I really don't like doing this, just because there should be a way for us to actually, for the author of cl-neo4j, there should be a way for users to be able to not to specify the equivalent of like a connection string, or at the very least provide a hash of the password, so that this way you can construct it directly from the arguments that we pass in. But this is something that I'll probably have to provide as a comment inside or request to see if it's even doable. Let me see what the port is set to, 7094. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so before, I don't know if I can actually do that. No, sorry. Okay, so let's do this and try and see if we can actually get to this db neo4j tx, and let's say method is options. Oh, Yason doesn't exist. Okay, hold on. QL Yason. There we go. Hold on. REPL. What was the error? Oh, it probably doesn't like this method options, because I don't know if options is even available. We could certainly do this, and let's do that. We can't get the flexi stream going, so we need to probably, because we need to set the header stream and do that. And let's see what happens. It's because method is not allowed, but at least that's telling us we have we can actually generate what we want. Okay, let's try and create a node here. Create a node in graph. In order for us to do that, we have the DB cl-neo4j TX API there, but in addition to that, we have wrappers node create. Now here, we're going to provide just the node. So before, the way we were doing this is we said constructor, but we don't need to. We're going to use a default node constructor, but it looks like I'm going to have to maybe specify the other things. So let's go ahead and set up properties. ID is going to be the movie. This is all metadata. Properties is going to be title, the movie, released in 2001. Okay. And no initial connections, no initial indices. Let's see what happens. Unknown key argument, ID. Ooh, okay. Let's see what happens. Well, this makes sense because it doesn't have ID, but I thought it would pass some of that stuff into the underlying default constructor. But we could do this. We might need to provide, at the very least, okay, okay. And what happens? Odd number key value arguments. Okay. So we need it to be called on the default node constructor. Default node constructor has some information that we want. So we need to go into not this, Oswell, localhost, cl-neo4j, source, wrapper, make standard node, a list. So in order for us to do this, we need to get self and then data. Okay, fine. This is the case we're going to have to do. we need to call make standard node ourselves, I guess. Yeah, probably gonna have to call make standard node ourselves. So you might be thinking, well, why not just provide the properties? We could certainly do that. That's fine. We could do that too. We could do this and do a node create and then attach it. So this is creating an anonymous node. This is not a named node. Let's see if there is okay, so what we're gonna have to do is do this. It looks like there's no way of doing this without setting the node ID after creating the node. So we'll do a let, and we will go ahead and do we're going to create this as node, and here we're going to go ahead and do setf node cl-neo4j wrapper node ID of the node to being the movie. And let's see if this creates it. It's going to probably, it's not of type list. Okay. So we're going to have to create this as a list. So in properties, it looks like it's expecting an A list. Let's just see. Let's do documentation, cl-neo4j wrapper node create function. Let's see. Properties are P list. Okay, so we need to create this as a P list. Okay. Title, the movie released 2001. Okay. Authorization. We're back to our authorization issue. And the reason is, if we go and look at this, because we now set drachma, we can now actually see what's going on. Okay. You could see that the authorization that's being sent is wrong because this is actually sent with the wrong password. So behind the scenes, it is actually attempting to create basic authorization requests. So what I'm going to try and see if I could do is explicitly pass the base encoded base 64 encoded string that we created earlier. Okay. Where is that? We did that earlier. Not important here. Hold on. Copy. Let's see if this actually works. So here, what I'm going to do is clear REPL. I'm going to setf neo4j, sorry, cl-neo4j to being our password. Okay, so now this is set to being this. All right, so let's see if this works. Okay, so what did it do? As expected, it is trying to do the base64 encoding itself. Not cool. All right, let me, for the sake of not wasting any more people's time, I will I will make the password into something that we all can look at for the time being, and I'm gonna make a mental note to, let me actually do this way. I created my credentials earlier, didn't I? Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so okay. J user being read line strm. Okay, so we got the username. Let's go ahead and also get the password. Okay. And we will know whether or not this works by running the node create. Boom. This actually worked as I expected. Okay. Not the best thing that I wanted, but at least it's slightly better. It looks like it's using an old API because the API that is provided by newer versions of cl-neo4j is different than db/data.node. Let me see. This is rather unfortunate. So I'm going to leave this here because this looks like we're going to have to create this from scratch ourselves, or at least update this API, this library to actually do what we want it to do, which is actually call out to the transaction API that we saw earlier. Because if you saw what we did earlier, sorry, shell. If you just simply query you can see that there isn't a node API here. Let me see one more thing. Okay, so version 3.5. Here it is. Get. Interesting. It says that it's available if we go and look at the node, the cl-neo4j RESTful API. Why is it not showing up here though when I try running this? Community bullseye. Let's try community bullseye REST API. Community bullseye. Okay. Let's do this. DB data. Okay, hold on. Clear that. Okay. 404 not found. That's interesting. So this is particularly interesting, folks, because the fact that this looks like the problem is with the server that I've constructed. But I'm a little surprised by this just merely because I'm able to actually put in the browser the API, and it actually okay. I'm gonna try one more thing, folks, before I will end this. I'm gonna stop my previous container, start it up again, and see with a different set of responsibilities, of course, and hopefully that I'll tell you what's going on there in that case. Stop neo4j. I'm going to use a different container image. So it might take a few seconds for me to actually get this set up. Basically, instead of using communities bullseye, I'm going to go ahead and try and see if I can use just normal neo4j latest. It might be that the community bullseye framework only provides the internals and not provides the RESTful API, but I can't really tell based on what I'm seeing here in the console. So just bear with me for a few seconds. Okay, so I'm pulling the neo4j latest image to see if that helps. And then let me go ahead and recreate the volume for our storage. Now let me start the command. Okay. Okay. So now let's see if log-g-f, just to make sure it started. It is completing the initialization, setting up the storage right now. And okay, so now we have this working. Let us go into eShell and let's see what we get when we do the APIs calls. No, this one. Okay. Okay. Let's see what it does. Okay, so we need to create a database here. Creating database. We have to create a new graph is what I'm saying. Let me see. Not graph algorithms. Batch operations. Let's see. Neo4j. Create new graph. Okay, so the way I corrected this, let me see, what did I define this as? I defined this as /data, so it should, my DB list should be correct. Let's see here. Let's see if I could just do that. Mark bundle is not supporting multi-use. Okay, I just want to list the databases that are available. It says 404 not found. Let me see. Did they create my database by default for me? It may have been the case. Let's see this. No, I don't want to play. I want to actually create a new database. Schema. Let's see. Okay, so the database name is actually Neo4j. It looks like. So let's see if I can do node. 404 is not found. Okay, so let's see if I could do this. db/neo4j. One second. Neo. Community API. Node. Oh, so the problem seems to be that the Neo4j community API is giving me a 404, which seems to be okay. So let's do this. We need to authorize ourselves. Let's see, db neo4j tx. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to have to use the tx option to actually construct the database, but that's kind of incorrect from what I'm reading from their API. So I'm going to have to do some digging here because I'm not getting all of the administration information that I should be getting when I actually try doing this. So I'm going to have to do some more digging. My apologies, folks. I thought I would be able to actually get this up and running a little bit faster than normal, but as it stands, everything is all done for a reason. So I'm going to have to do some more digging into this and then come up with something rather than wasting other folks' time on the stream as we're going through this. We're going to continue this project. We're going to basically go through Neo4j, probably extend the API. I might actually end up writing between now and then. If it turns out that the transaction API needs to work, I might end up writing a pull request with some of this information just so that we can actually get this in cl-neo4j and then be able to work with it. But before I let you go, just a reminder, we are off the next 2 weeks. And I will see you in the upcoming year. And hopefully in the meantime, between now and then, I can get some of this, kind of squared out. Thanks for watching. And I will see you guys after the new year. Happy holidays and happy new year.